riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou art the first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of Be thou my vision. Thou art the first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in God alone be first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. High King of heaven, my victory won. May I reach heaven's joys, oh bright heaven's sun. Heart of my own heart, whatever befall, still be my vision, O ruler of Be thou my vision. God alone be first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. Be thou my vision, O Lord of my heart. Not be all else to me, save that thou art. Thou my best thought, by day or by night. Waking or sleeping, thy presence my light. Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. God alone be first in my Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee one. Riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and thou only first in my heart. High King of heaven, Be thou my wisdom, and thou my true word. I ever with thee, and thou with me, Lord. Thou my great Father, and I thy true Son. Thou in me dwelling, and I with thee riches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou and only first in my heart. High King of heaven, my treasure thou art. speeches I heed not, nor man's empty praise. Thou mine inheritance, now and always. Thou me first in my.
With this year, as we're looking at kind of what the three things that towards a holistic living all of our lives for Jesus Christ, as we look at emotional health, spiritual depth, and marriage and family relationships. I'm going to spend some time this morning on one aspect of marriage and family relationships, and that is focusing more to the parents. For the children, I also want you to listen, because I want you to tell me if I'm right or wrong. If I say anything wrong, I want you to point that out to me after the service. I also want you to listen and think about whether or not what you hear your parents say is what they want you to hear. So think about that. So parents, did you know that your words are incredibly powerful? I don't know if it always seems like your words are powerful. I think there's times when you're trying to alter a child's behavior, usually for their good. It may feel like the words we say don't seem to have any power at all. I remember years ago in the Reader's Digest a little joke that said trying to control your child with your voice is like trying to drive your car by blowing the horn. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. But while it might not seem at times that your words are powerful, words are not necessarily powerful in relation to changing your child's behavior. They can seem anything but powerful at times, but words from parents don't communicate directions so much as they communicate worth and value. So often as parents, when we're focusing on trying to change our child's behavior, what our children hear is an assessment of their worth. Effective behavioral change only comes from an internal motivation. Until someone wants to change what they're doing. Now, we can temporarily make behavioral change if the child does the change in behavior just because they're tired of hearing the negative words. But what was communicated to the children wasn't so much the directions of what you wanted them to do. What was communicated was their sense of worth and value. Proverbs 12:18 says, "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts." Whoops, I went twice. Let's see if we can go back. "There is one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing." Think about that in relation to your children. The incredible power of your words when you speak rashly, when you speak harshly, hurts sometimes much worse than physical injury. I know we've the whole saying, "Sticks and stones break my bones, words can never hurt me," as a pile of bunk. Words carry incredible weight, especially from parents. And I think maybe sometimes especially from mothers. The words that you speak carry such weight and power. This is very true for fathers as well. The words you speak to your children carry such incredible power. What do you communicate to your children? What do you want to communicate to your children? This principle very much holds true for any close family relationship. The words to your spouse, words to your friends. Proverbs 18:20 says, "Life and death are in the power of the tongue. So your tongue carries the power of both life, the healing, or it carries a sense of death, and especially when spoken rashly and harshly. I want to look at a story in the Old Testament of a man who spoke very rashly and greatly regretted the fact that he did. The story is in Numbers 23. You're welcome to turn there. It's a fairly familiar story, I believe. And this is very shortly prior to the children of Israel entering the promised land. So they have been living as nomads wandering through the desert for 40 years. Many of them have died off. And it happened again that they ran out of water. Now this is 40 years. They have walked through the Red Sea. They saw water come through the rock when Moses struck it. They heard God speak the 10 Commandments from the top of Mount Sinai. They had worshiped a golden calf and had repented of that. They had seen snakes come through the camp and biting them, and they were healed when they looked at the snake on the pole. They had experienced and seen so much. And once again, after 40 years wandering in the desert, verse 2, chapter 20 says, "Now there was no water for the community, and people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. They quarreled with Moses and said, 'If only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. Why did you bring the Lord's community into this desert that we and our livestock should die here? Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grain or figs, grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink.'" So here they are again saying, "Why did you take us out of Egypt?" Parents, I don't know if you can identify with this when a child feels like they're whining for the 100th time about needing a drink of water, needing to stop to go to the bathroom, whatever it is. And I'm wondering what words come out your mouth when you are frustrated with your children. And think about the incredible power of those words. We're going to look at some positive aspects too. This is not going to just all be, I feel sometimes like parents, I can feel like I've left my family down, left my parents down. And I think especially, it's just easy to hear a sermon and think that it's just all the negative stuff. But the opportunity for both incredible harm and incredible healing in life is there. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to this wretched place? There's no water to drink. 40 years they left Egypt in slavery, and they're still going back through all of this. So think about what seems to you ridiculous complaining. Children whining. It's not fair among siblings. Just can be incredibly, incredibly frustrating. So what does Moses do? Let's look at Moses picking up in verse 6. Moses and Aaron went from the assembly of the Lord, went from the assembly to the entrance of the tent of meeting and fell face down. And the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord said to Moses, "Take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together. Speak to that rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community so they and their livestock can drink." So Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock, and Moses said to them, so Moses is standing there in front. He is so frustrated. This has been 40 years of acting like just immature, and I don't think we should be too hard on the children of Israel, because some of the things we complain about are just as bad. But here Moses is once again so frustrated, and so he stands there in front of the rock. God told, "You speak to the rock." And Moses said to them, "Listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock?" Then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, "Because you did not trust me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land I give them." These were the waters of Meribah, where the Israelites quarreled with the Lord, and where he showed himself holy among them. In Psalms, when David is recounting this event, this is what he says. This is Psalm 106, verse 32. "At the waters of Meribah, they angered the Lord, and trouble came to Moses because of them. For they rebelled against his spirit, and Moses spoke rashly with his lips." That word rashly is the same one that is the same root word as rash. Is also translated rash in Proverbs 12:18. And so as you think about this, the Hebrew word is baltah. It's a primitive root which means to babble, to vociferate angrily, pronounce or speak unadvisedly. So this is when he says that, when David says Moses spoke rashly, he was almost incoherent. Like he was angry and rash and harsh. And sometimes, the things that we say to our children when we are harsh and angry also don't always make sense. Shut your mouth and eat, right? You've heard some of those before. How do you react to your children, and what do you communicate to them? And it's one thing when, as in this case, they were whining and complaining. What about the words you say when you are trying to correct your child, or you're reacting to their child when they have truly done something that causes some catastrophic incident or is clearly sin? What about when they've really messed up? What do you communicate when you catch them in a lie or catch them cheating on a test? Anytime that we are trying to correct our children, there is this tendency to come out and to be rash and speak words that thrust like a sword, that damage, that hurt. How do you respond to your children when they start expressing sexual curiosity? Do you communicate shame and they wish they hadn't spoke up? How can you... And I have two things, kind of two contrasts that I think I found helpful, and I am convicted by this message probably more than anyone here, because sometimes the words that come out my mouth are not honoring and glorifying to God. They are not affirming and supportive of my children, but they are tearing down. So are your words going to be angry or affirming? I would suggest there's a place where you can have righteous anger, but I would suggest the words you speak to your children cannot be both angry and affirming. When your posture, when your words to your children are that of anger, I don't think you can be both. If anger is what is being communicated, what you are telling your child is that they are a bother, they're an inconvenience, they've made your life difficult, and they are in your way. Those are the words that's what a child feels when the words are coming out angry and rashly, like Moses did when he said, "You rebels, must we bring water out of this rock for you?" Just in anger. It communicates that they're a bother, an inconvenience, that you don't like them as a person. Instead of communicating that you're glad they're your son or daughter and that that they're a valued person, it says at that moment that your life would be better off without them there, or better off without that behavior. Now, children, I want you to know when your parents do express frustration or express anger, they are not trying to communicate to you that you're a bother or that you're not valued. They are looking out for your best, and they know that your life would be better if you did things the way that you were instructed to. But when anger and frustration come out, what the child feels is a lack of affirmation. Some angry words that are so easy to come out of our mouths towards others is, "What is your problem?" Have you ever said that to your child? What is wrong with you? Why do you always... Those are angry words that communicate a lack of affirmation and are rash and are thrusting like a sword. Or will we speak affirming words? Will we say, "It would be so much better if you could do it this way," or "This is important because..." And I have a list here of also some other suggestions, some specific words. But how can you affirm them? I think one of the things that I've watched some of the most harmful words be spoke to children is in youth sports. I was at a tournament yesterday, and I heard a mom, and she wasn't real happy with the way her child was performing, and she was yelling, "Wake up! Wake up! You can sleep at home!" And her friends were there, and they were laughing. They thought it was funny. And I don't know. The boy who was playing basketball seemed very focused on the game. I don't know if he heard that or not. And yet, what did that communicate to the child? It communicated that your performance is unacceptable, which makes you unacceptable as an individual. At least that's what a child is going to tend to hear. When behavior is spoken of in anger or frustration, it communicates to your child that they are inadequate, that they are a bother, and that they are not worth something to you. When they fail big time, encourage them that I know what you did is not who you are. I love you. I try, and I would say most days, in the evenings, I pray for my children and I say, I love you, I'm glad you're my son, or I'm glad you're my daughter. Can you speak those affirming words? If your child is playing sports, to say, I'm proud of you, or if they did just play terrible, you can still say, I love watching you play. How many ways can you say, I'm glad you're part of my life? If you're simply trying to change behavior, the power of the words received are always communicating value. Rash words like sword thrust, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. When you're affirming to your child, will your words communicate that you are angry or affirming? Or will they communicate that you see pathetic or potential? So many ways we can communicate the idea. Do you want to tell your child that they're pathetic? I guarantee you not one parent in here, and I want to tell your children this, not one parent in here looks at you as pathetic. They look at you with potential, and they long to see you become men and women that bring honor and glory to God, and they know that you can, and they believe in you. And I would also like to express that to the children. I love having a chance to teach some of the Sunday school classes, and I see so much intelligence and a commitment and a love for God. And it warms my heart as well if an adult wants to make a selection. When Austin does what he did this morning, you really got to be on your toes, because the children here are speaking up fast, and they love the songs, they love the old hymns, and that warms my heart. So there is so much potential. But I think maybe one of the most common ways we communicate pathetic is through our body language. How many times do your children see an eye roll, deep frustrated breath? You're ridiculous. Like Proverbs says, the power of life and death is in your words. So what are you communicating? And is it what you want to communicate? Or can you stop and take a deep breath and first of all see potential and then communicate that potential? So are we going to communicate angry and affirming? Angry or affirming, or pathetic or potential? Can you speak words that communicate potential and affirming in your child as a human being created in the image of God? The tongue of the wise brings healing. So how can we communicate positively? It said that Jeff and Johnny were climbing a tree in the park. Parents were watching when a sudden wind started shaking the tree ferociously. Jeff's dad said, "Jeff, hold on tight." Johnny's mom yelled out, "Johnny, don't fall." Which child do you think had the best potential to stay safely in the tree? Right? It's just maybe a simple thing. But the don't fall puts a whole lot of responsibility on Johnny to perform correctly. Where what Jeff's dad communicated was hold on tight. This is what you can do. Rash words thrust like a sword, but the words of the wise bring healing. And the power of life and death is in the tongue. One of the most powerful, here's the thing. There is not one set of parents in here that will not speak rash, harsh, angry words to your children. And I want to be very encouraging this morning. And one of the most powerful affirming and communicating of potential words to your children is what you say. You have an incredible opportunity right after you have spoken rashly to your children. One of the most powerful affirming potential communicating words that can come out of your mouth to your children is to say, "I am sorry." To be humble enough and acknowledge that you aren't placing yourself up here. When you're angry, all you're communicating is judgment and decrease in value. When you recognize that, bring yourself down and say, "I am so sorry. It was wrong of me to communicate in anger." And then to say, "I struggle with anger." "I know the words I said hurt you. Will you please forgive me?" Do you have, when rash, harsh words come out of your mouth, parents, please take a big gulp and say, "I am so sorry. Will you please forgive me?" Here's something to keep in mind, though. The apology will be rendered completely useless if a qualifier is added to that statement. You know, as parents, we want so bad to see our children succeed and behave and do well. But if you speak rash and harsh words and then say, "I am sorry, will you please forgive me?" but you need to understand what your behavior did to, all of a sudden the apology means absolutely nothing, and you are, while you said, "I take responsibility for what I said," you then put the responsibility for your anger back on the child. Now, that doesn't mean that you just embrace dangerous or sinful behavior. But when you're apologizing for the harsh words, you cannot add a qualifier to that. If you want to be affirming instead of angry and cutting your child down, when it's time to own the fact that you blew it, that's where that conversation needs to stop. It doesn't mean somehow you need to give permission for bad behavior, for them to go back to bad behavior. but the qualifier cannot be there, or the words, the thrusts, the harsh words, the thrusts will sometimes be even worse. Dr. John Coulson lists some suggested ways. Can you all read that? If not, I could print this out if anybody's interested. But here he has some practical suggestions for ways to speak in difficult times when your children are being frustrating and causing problems, on things to say instead of the words that can be harsh and tearing down. He says, don't say calm down. Say, you are so upset. Telling someone to calm down actually has the opposite effect. It's dismissive and it denies emotions. Instead, focus on labeling the emotion. If you can name it, you can tame it, he says. So just simply observing to your child, you seem so upset. You seem angry. Instead of saying calm down, which again is not effective. Don't say you're so clever. Ask, how did you feel when? He says research indicates that praise, especially false or flattery type praise, leads to inferences of low ability. The best thing you can do is turn it back on the person or child. For instance, you could say, hey, you seem really happy with this outcome. Tell me what you did to get it. Don't say, ugh, you're just like your mother. Say, wow, this is really challenging for you. Avoid comparisons. Highlight what you're observing. Maybe you could say, in these situations you seem to struggle with, and then offer help. Don't say, because I said so. Instead, say, let me tell you why this matters. When people have a rationale for the requests we are making, they are far more likely to be compliant. Again, when we can communicate value and draw out the internal motivation that is there, much more effective way to change. Don't say, I was lousy at that. Perhaps you could offer, it's amazing what we can do when we try. We can promote a growth mindset. Carol Dweck has research on this. By highlighting what happens when we have a go at it, put some effort into it and work hard at something, can't yet doesn't necessarily mean you won't ever. So when you are trying to do something and fail, don't focus on yourself as a failure, but focus on what you can accomplish. And don't say, don't be so stupid. In this case, simply pause and walk away. We don't motivate others by making them feel lousy about themselves. If they are doing something stupid, ask them to stop. Stupid to us may not seem stupid to them. Be curious, not cranky. There is always a reason for challenging behavior. So if you can name the emotion when you're trying to bring your child into focus, approach it. I like that thought about be curious, not cranky. If we can try to understand our child, recognize that they are an individual created in the image of God, and be curious about why they're whining and complaining again, try to understand what they're feeling, and then communicate to them what we see. There's one whose rash words are like sword thrusts, but the tongue of the wise brings healing. Which do you want to be for your child? Father in heaven, thank you so much for your presence here. Thank you that you have loved us incredibly, that you are just the perfect Father, that for each of us, that you love us. Lord, it's so easy for us to take the powerful words that we heard from our parents, especially the negative ones, and communicate that message to our children. Lord, I pray that you would show us how to be affirming instead of angry. Show us how to communicate potential instead of pathetic. Just help us to speak wise words that bring healing, not harsh words that thrust like a sword into our child's heart. Thank you for your presence, Lord. We need your help. to be the parents that you long for us and that you've created us to be. In Jesus' name, amen.
Number 200.